1973.
1973, yeah. The use of the voicing and stuff. We were moving in. Well, all right. We'll start the
Yeah,
recording.
well,
Talk about it because
yeah, because that's the whole part of it right now, right? Because now you're thinking we really got something to discuss here. That's the exciting part about this, though. So,
yeah.
with that, then I'm gonna start recording in three, two. Hey, welcome to the Unconnoisseur, everybody. I'm your co-host Drew.
And I'm Matt.
This week on the channel, we're going to be discussing album number 95. This is Michael Garrick, Troppo from 1973, and the record label was Argo. What uh, what was your thoughts on music this week?
Well, this week I was kind of all over the place. The actual album that we're studying, as good as it is, I don't want to say it didn't hold my interest, but there was a lot of stuff that I had to come back to this week. Um, as far as personal stuff goes, it just come back to listen to kind of quiet my thoughts a little bit and get back to some music that I really really enjoyed. There was some new stuff that came out this week that I know that you and I kind of enjoyed together. Listening to some new stuff this week, and so I kind of bounced all over the place this week as far as what I was listening to. However, Tropo w- was in my ears a lot. I was really digging Tropo from Michael Garrick. We'll get into it in a minute. I just want to remind you that we are unconnoisseurs. We are not professional jazz musicians or anything like that. The reason we're doing this is because Drew and I are on a journey together. And if you'd like to join our journey, we'd love to have you. Comment on the video, comment what you like about the video, tell us what you don't like about the video, and we'll, try and fix it. But he and I are on a journey together, getting these discussions, communicating all week long. We absolutely love the journey that we're on. We're here to help you discover jazz as well. So if you're new to jazz and like we are, like we were, like we still are, and you want to start your journey in jazz, let us know. We're here to help you discover this awesome music they call jazz. Drew,
Absolutely.
what was your week in music like?
It much like yours, I got to listen to a lot of different albums by a lot of different artists, picking up on some miscellaneous things along the way, things that I didn't recognize beforehand, things that I may still realize that I don't recognize. Last week, I mentioned a trumpet player had passed away, female artist, and I just wanted to bring that name back up. It was Jamie Branch. Uh, just listening to that album, I picked a couple of songs up again this week and just turned that in. So I'm listening to some of the newer stuff as well as the older.
Yeah.
It hits me that as we go over this week after week, and it'll change here in a couple of weeks because we've already done this. We're at 55,
Hmm.
but probably in the first 10 albums of the magazine, we're going to notice British. We're going to notice a little bit older, and then as we expand into the mid of the magazine, I realize that we pick up a lot of jazz greats from the past. And so
Yeah.
we're listening. My reminder this, even again this week, and in my notes from back in March or April, April 23rd, I think, is when we first listened to Michael Garrick. Um, I lost my train of thought there. When we look at this, it is the jazz greats, and it is the top 100 albums. So we're really starting at the top echelon of all jazz albums, according to John Newey and his team over at Jazzwise. So for me, the music this week was just it was on point. It really
It
was.
sure was. Yeah, it sure
Um,
was.
what else has been going on? We'll get to the real album here in a moment, but
I
what's
know,
life
I
been
know.
like, man?
Well, you know what? It's been sunny here, which is weird for the middle of February. We had a lot of sunshine last week. Weather was kind of just, I don't want to say perfect because 40 degrees isn't perfect, but when you think of Indiana in the winter, it's not 40 degrees in February. So,
No,
um,
no.
the weather last week was good. We've got one of our children who is moving out of the house, which is a big step for us, and so we helped him move out this weekend actually, and it's good. I'm glad that he's taking the step of adulthood and moving out. It's a little it's a little disheartening as a parent to watch your kids leave, and it's hard to to get over that hurdle. But you know what? We're working on it. It's a new experience for us and a new experience for him, and I can't wait to see him thrive in life. Let's just put it that way. He's a
Yeah.
great kid, anyways. He you know he I'm not worried about him making poor choices. Let's put it that way. I wish I wish I could have been as good as him when I was growing up. There were some choices that I made that
Well,
I'm not too happy with.
well, I think everybody has to make choices as they move out and they start to spread their wings and fly. Hopefully that they're good.
Yeah.
Most of them are probably bad.
Well,
There was a quote in a movie. I can't think about what that was right now, but life and wisdom is gained by bad decisions. It was a
yes.
quote similar to that. And you don't learn from always being good decisions. You learn from those bad decisions and overcoming those poor choices in life. So, I
I think
I'll
I think I
try.
still have I think I still have a boot heel on my forehead.
I bet you do. Oh man. Oh
Inside
man.
personal brother joke there.
Yeah, that's the interesting part, man, is we did grow up together and we watched the split as you took off, and then my choices while you were still in the house were pretty bad. So when I got to move out, I didn't even know if it was questionable at that point in time. It's questionable that I'm still alive today, but
Yeah,
it's there. So
yeah, yeah,
so
yeah,
what is
for
it
sure.
like having the first one moving out?
Well, I don't. He just finished moving out yesterday, so ask me again next week, and I'll
Fresh.
tell you. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
still fresh.
Okay.
Ask me again next week, and we'll hash that out
Yeah.
next week, I'm sure. But I'm sure the food budget's going to go down a little bit.
Well, I think last week you touched on that too, right?
I think so.
Leftovers versus
Yeah,
no leftovers.
yeah,
Mom cooking for us versus leftovers, and
yeah.
so I bet your food budget does go down. It'll be like a pay raise.
Big pay raise for sure.
Well, if your son's anything like we were, just because I'm around the corner means I might as well stop by for a meal or three.
He's already mentioned that. Hey, there might be times when I come over for dinner. Hey, that's great, man.
It's I have to talk about that because it hit me earlier, and I'll ask you or tell you why. I'd moved out on my own just right before the end of high school. Moved in with a good friend of mine, and uh, as I was working at Sears Automotive and living in an apartment, one afternoon somebody was knocking on my door, a little apartment there, and I thought it was really weird. I didn't expect anybody coming over, and Dad walked in, grabbed tortilla chips and salsa, and sat down and just wanted to hang out. I thought that was the most bizarre thing that had ever happened to me. I'm on my own. Questionable decisions in life, right? My
Uh-huh,
whole
right?
apartment life was based on those questionable decisions. But he just came over to hang out. And I thought
Yeah,
it was so bizarre. I was probably cleaning up on my way over to Sears Automotive, but he just got to hang out. And that made it made such an impact in me that it here it still there were moments when I thought it haunted me because it was just so that bizarre moment happened. But you said this, which made me think about it. There's a way that Dad always knows what's going on.
uh-huh.
Something triggers him as a parent or as a father or as a person that he just says, "Hey, I better find out what's going on." And
Yeah,
I don't know what that is, but you got to have lunch with him,
yeah,
so
yeah. He and I had lunch today. We talked about the Unconnoisseur channel quite a bit. Talked about, of course, you and I on our journey together. They actually just listened to the podcast, the YouTube video that we put out, number 100. We just dropped that this last week, and so they were happy. I think mom was. I think you were on the text thread too.
yeah,
Anyways,
oh yeah,
yeah, mom was talking to us. So he's a very good listener though, and he knows when things are going on. I don't know how he knows it, whether he's got an angel on his shoulder that's telling him, "Hey, you better have lunch with one of your sons." But it worked today. So
we
um,
as we progress through our jazz listening, we make comments about Ron Carter and listen to him play his bass in the background and his ability to sit and chill play when needed, and listen. And so we've kind of joked. We'll talk about it more when we get to that week of it. But like Ron Carter, our father sits back and just chills, watches,
Yeah.
observes, plays his notes when he needs to play his notes, and he plays. He doesn't play miscellaneous notes. He plays all the right notes at all the right time, like he's been prepared for that. I kind of wonder if it's the years of praying for us that has left him fully in tune with what's going on in our world.
Well, and like I said, he may very well have an angel on his shoulder, which would not
It's
surprise me one bit.
that's called our
Now,
mother.
I was going to say her name might be Pat, but
Saint Pat. It might be. It might
yeah,
be.
yeah,
Well,
for
as you
sure.
know, this week has been a little wondrous for me. It is now February of 2024, long after the big impact of COVID, and I don't know exactly where or how, but Friday I started to feel a little bit weird. Today's Wednesday, no Tuesday, and
No, Monday.
yep.
Yep.
Well, there we go. Self-explanatory. Friday, I started to feel a little twinge in the afternoon. I'd gone for a nice long ride in the morning with a buddy of mine, and that night I was thinking maybe it was just the allergies. The rain had come in over the weekend before, so mold was a little bit higher. The pollen's high. I thought my cough may be part of that. We were getting ready to take a drive to LaGrange, Texas. Yes, the LaGrange from ZZ Top, where Lily had one of the state champ, not state champ, but one of the preliminary games against LaGrange, against the school in LaGrange. So I took another COVID test and tested positive for COVID. Um, and so the cough that I had from Friday night was all part of the COVID. I tested negative Friday night, and then Saturday morning. I understand why people really struggle with COVID because that burning of the lungs, and for me, it was a cough that just tore those lungs up. I slept. That's why I don't know what day it is. I slept from pretty much all day Saturday, all day Sunday. Started to feel pretty righteous again early this morning, like at midnight. And then I couldn't
Mhm.
sleep. I'd been in bed. My back was hurting. My
Yeah.
body was hurting from not moving so much. So I'll take another test tonight, make sure that I'm negative. We've got another game to go to tomorrow that is in Dallas, Texas.
Oh boy.
So this First Baptist Academy in Dallas. So we are going to plan since we have the opportunity as a family. She catches the bus at man, they're leaving at like 10 a.m. tomorrow morning, so she'll miss all day school. And a note just come over. They were walking out as we began to record that they are going to spend the night in Dallas.
So
So
cool.
she is super stoked about this.
Yeah.
We'll see what'll happen, but we're coming in. You know, it's March Madness getting ready to happen soon, so basketball's all steams ahead. But this could be one of those determining factor on the state games.
Yeah.
So her school could win state championship. We're looking forward to that. Again, she's on the varsity team. She's a freshman. It is a
Right.
private school, so make no qualms about it. We're not going NCL and NCAA
It's not-
basketball tomorrow,
Right.
but she's having a fun time with it. So
Yeah.
this COVID has kept me down. I didn't really listen to much music because I just didn't want anything on. I watched a little bit of YouTube shorts and then passed out.
Yeah.
Got up to drink a lot, man. I've been drinking fluid like it's out of control. And
Yeah. Good
this
for you.
morning, I was fortunate that my cup of coffee tastes like my cup of coffee.
Oh,
So
thank goodness.
definitely thankful. So
Well,
that's kind of been, and it is Monday morning, kind of been
yeah.
the weekend.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the good news is you can't catch Corona over YouTube, so
I know,
we're,
right?
we're all safe here, and you're quarantined there, and everyone out listening to us today, you're still safe from
Uh,
us, anyways.
if I could catch Corona over the internet, would you throw me a cold one, please?
I would throw you a cold one.
Oh, Matt, that's
It's funny
funny.
because I was telling Dad at lunch today that we had an excursion to go to on Saturday night at fundraiser, and make no qualms about it. I like beer, I'm not opposed to drinking, but it's been a long, long, long time since I've had a Coors Light,
Hmm.
and at our fundraiser on Saturday night, I had the choice of Busch Light or Coors Light, and so I chose the Coors Light. Whew, that was it was rough for me. It was rough. Dad said, "Well, what's the deal?" And I said, "Well, um, Yinling is my starting point, and if it's not better than Yinling, I just don't need to drink it. Uh, I
What were
said I
my
don't need
choices? Coors or Bush?
more Bush. Yeah, which one should I
Man,
have gone with?
no, can I have an ice water, please?
That's luckily,
Wh-
luckily they did provide ice water for free, which I didn't know until after I had the beer. Otherwise, I probably would have just had
Well,
water.
Bush. So I would have chosen Coors too. Bush Light
Yeah.
was my college beer. Little
Uh-huh.
gas station down the street. You could pick up a case of beer for like $5.99. It was cheap. There was other terms for it, but I was
Yeah.
19. You could slide in and slide out and get a case of beer. So you get a bunch of beer for college. We were in tech school, so we could
Right.
make. But
Yeah.
head to the Rockies, baby.
Head to the Rockies. Yeah. Yeah. It's been a long time
But
since I've had a, I don't want to say cheap beer, but an inexpensive beer,
yeah,
and it just didn't hit the palate too well.
and I growing up, I'm going to transition back to both of us here. Growing up, uh, beer is beer, right? But then you shipped out, and you
Mhm.
got a flavor for more than the American. Well, we were in Indiana, so it was 2% beer too. It
Yeah.
wasn't even good beer. It
Right.
was legal. It was what 2.5%.
Yeah.
So
It's called, we used to call it near beer.
near beer. That's
It's
right.
almost beer.
But then you shipped out, and now you're doing something different with that. But you shipped out and got a
Well,
flavor for some real beer throughout the world.
yes, absolutely. When I
Tell
spent time in France, I was actually got the opportunity to be on the beach. I think I touched on this a little bit last week, but to be on the beach for the 50-year anniversary of D-Day, which was a big deal for me. But the Europeans, they drink a little bit different than we do. They enjoy a heartier style beer than the American style. Now, don't get me wrong. When you're 21 years old, you're in the military, you're not making a ton of money, you buy cheap beer. Don't get me wrong. But man, when I was over there and found the good stuff or tried the good stuff, that's what really turned my palate on to really, really good beer. And then I started brewing my own home beer, trying to kind of mimic some of those recipes, um,
well,
which
you were doing that in Clarksville, in
and yeah,
Tennessee.
yep, in
When you got
Clarksville.
was that I'm in history in my mind. I was in high school when you. Well, I wasn't even in high school when you shipped out to boot camp.
Right.
And so when you got back to Clarksville, you had already been overseas. You were
No, I did my 3.5 years in Chicago.
that's right.
Then I moved to Clarksville, and I don't. We were there for probably a year and a half before my trip to France for the 50-year anniversary. And then yeah, so we spent 3 weeks over there, um, and let's just put it this way: I tasted a lot of beer that I would not have had the opportunity to taste here in America. They were very friendly to us, especially soldiers walking around, in uniform. The French people just they just were loving on us all the time, and so you couldn't walk into a bar without at least one person saying, "Hey, let me buy you a drink." You know what I mean? So
Yep.
yeah, it was good. But yeah, I did get a flavor for the good stuff. I homebrewed for a while down there. I think
Oh
you
yeah.
probably tried some of my homebrew stuff.
Well, do I have stories about that week? I don't know. I started driving when you were in Chicago, so I had just gotten my license. I think a trip to Chicago that Phil and I made was one of the first long distances from Fort Wayne to Chicago,
Hmm.
and what I remember then about uh, was the barracks. We got
Yep.
to meet a
Yeah.
lot of the cool people that you were hanging out with, and
Oh
meet a
yeah.
lot of those. But then Clarksville, what Chicago 4 hours?
Uh huh. Yep.
So Chicago to Fort Wayne's one drive. I'm in Texas now. 4 hours to me. I'm gonna drive 4 hours to Dallas to watch a game at
I
six
was going
o'clock
to
and
say
drive home tomorrow night. I'm like,
that's around the corner for
yeah,
you now.
just hop, skip, and a jump. But as a 16-year-old kid, 4 was a long trip. But then when
Mhm.
you moved to Tennessee, that was an 8-hour trip. And
Yeah.
Phil and I both had our license, and yeah, we came down, and I think we started drinking early in the afternoon because you were out running your 12 miles for the
Mhm.
morning and 8 hours of
Yeah.
trumpet practice. So, oh yeah, I got
Yeah.
sunburnt.
Yeah.
I remember vaguely some of those days and nights. Yeah, you were brewing your own. Hey, mom and dad, if you're listening, I was not drinking underage, and Matt was
No, no,
not
no, I would
supplying any of it.
never provide underage. Nope. No way.
At least we weren't driving anywhere. When you got home, we were done. Movies and laughter.
Yeah.
I don't know how
Well,
Kendra dealt with all three of us in the house at one time. Let alone
uh,
me and you.
she might have drank a little bit too.
She might have needed to, if I'm honest.
With all three of us there together. Oh my gosh. She
But
loves you guys. You know that.
you went from brewing the beer to what are you doing now? I know
Well,
that you're still making something. Tell us
I
a little bit
I,
about
t-
it.
I took a good 15-year hiatus brewing beer. I think when I was out of the military, we moved back home to Fort Wayne. Um, we had the space then, but I chose just to kind of take a break and not do it for a while. I got rid of most of my equipment, anyways. Well, a year and a half ago, we're sitting at a cidery down in our addition, and they have this product called mead. And I had read a little bit about mead, didn't know a lot about it, so I ordered a mead from their tap, and I was sipping on it, and my wife had a cider, Kendra had a cider, and so I tried the cider, tried the mead, and honestly, I could not tell the difference. I almost went back up and said, I think you poured me a cider. I didn't because that's rude. But I was sitting there thinking, I could probably make a better mead than than this professional,
Wow.
yeah, cidery. So I started researching it, and I got back into the home brewing hobby. And so I've been making mead. That's another journey for me. It's another hobby for me. And believe it or not, I listen to jazz while I make mead. Imagine that, right?
I bet you
Um,
do.
so when I first started back in November of 21, no, that would have been in November of 22. Sorry. First batch was an easy batch. It's all grocery store ingredients, even using bread yeast. And so that batch turned out pretty well. Of course, not being a huge mead connoisseur, I didn't even really know what mead was supposed to taste like. But that first batch, man, that kind of hit my palate pretty well. It you know came out it came out pretty well for being my very first try at it. So I've got, I don't know, I've probably got 30 batches under my belt now, and I've got a batch going right now that was Kendra's favorite. It was a blueberry black currant mead.
Mm.
That'll be a still mead, and we tend to like Kendra and I tend to like our drinks on the sweeter side. And believe it or not, this blueberry was in the mead category was a dry. It would have been labeled as a dry mead, but man, the way that it came out, whew. And so I like fiddling with recipes, and I like the research and watching my favorite YouTubers, um, Man Made Mead and City Stead Brewing, City Stead. Those are my favorite guys that I watch on YouTube for recipes and for ideas and stuff. So it's a fun hobby. I think I'm gonna probably need it a little more now that we've got one out of the house, and I'll need something to spend some time on. Um, but mead is a wine made from honey, and of course, honey's not getting any cheaper. It's not a cheap hobby. Let's put it that way. But I'm glad I
No.
got started when I did, and you know, funny you should mention that because I just started bottling in 375 milliliter bottles so that I can start sending you mead. Because
Ooh.
I didn't
Yeah.
start this way because we weren't on our journey yet, but since we started our journey, I've started naming my meads based on the artists that we're listening to that week.
Yes.
So it's pretty cool, and I'll put probably 5 or 6 bottles in a box for you, so that you and I can
Okay.
enjoy a mead. I I'd have to look back at my notes. Tubby, I don't think I did one for. Yeah.
Did you do what?
Uh,
Did you do one for water?
did I do one for water?
Yeah,
No.
the album Water coming up soon.
Coming up soon? No,
I don't
unfortunately
think that you did. I don't think that there was any
unfortunately.
mead smooth enough for that.
No, we'll talk about water in just in a little
In
bit,
a week or two.
in a week or two. I do know. Okay, Larry Young was the first week that I named
Mm,
jazz because I remember that one. It's a hoppy mead. Um, so, anyways,
yep.
enough about my hobby. Enough about my hobby. I will tell you though, it's a journey just like we're on with jazz. So, w- like jazz, and I say this a lot. This is a marathon for us.
Yeah.
And if you're watching and you subscribe, and you're going to get there too, I think it's going to be a consuming thing where you want more and you want more and you want more. And man, there's times in the week where I just get overwhelmed. Like I just want to hear everything right now. And you and I have talked
Mm.
about the Matrix. We use the Matrix movie a
Just
lot.
download
Where
it.
just download it. Oh, you want to learn jujitsu? Here you go. Now you know jujitsu. Uh, you want to learn to fly a helicopter? Here's the instructions. Download it. Now you can fly a helicopter. And, we've laughed about it a lot together on our other weekly conversations, but I don't think I'd want to be downloaded the jazz.
No.
You want to know everything about jazz? Here you go. Just download it. Now you know everything about jazz. I would not want that because it's the journey that we're on is part of the fun. Well, most of the fun actually. And coming up in a little bit, you'll see a quote on a slideshow that I'm going to do. And we talked about it last week. Me being a DJ and all that. Whatever you do, do it to music. That's kind of been my mantra uh,
Yep.
for quite a while. And um, and do not get me. Is that my cue?
No,
Do
you're
not.
good. You're good.
Okay. Do not get me wrong. Bon Jovi and Rush and Van Halen. I love them all, but I can only hear "Living on a Prayer" so much more before my head explodes and I need to listen to something else. And that's why you and I, again, starting from
Yeah.
the beginning, I don't need to rehash all that, but that's why you and I are on this journey. Is just because we were caught in a rut. We needed something else to listen to. We didn't know what we didn't know, and that's the exciting part about this journey. Let's transition that right in. Are you ready?
I think if you've got a slideshow, I think you usually do. Bring that bad boy up.
All right.
My timer was going off, and I thought that was a perfect time,
All right.
perfect segue, anyways. And you said this as you're bringing that up. You mentioned that uh, it is a marathon, not a sprint. Before you hit play on that, we'll just leave that up there. But
All right.
I do a lot of mountain biking. I've worked with a lot of student athletes from the local schools here. And one of the things that we would say is that find your rhythm and stick to it. This is going to be a long ride. Find your cadence and get comfortable with it. Or if you're going up the hill, it's a long hill. Get comfortable with it. And so the note that I always hear when you remind us that it's a marathon and not a sprint, this is going to be a 100 album journey. Settle in, get comfortable, grab your beverage, and have a conversation about some really incredible music. So, okay, I've got your slideshow up.
All right. You
We
ready?
are ready.
All right. So this week we're talking about Michael Garrick. He's artist number 95 on our top 100 list that shook the world. The album is called Troppo, and you know the, here's the exciting part. Unfortunately, you can't find it on Google Music. Can't find it on Apple Music.
No,
Fortunately for us, go ahead.
I was going to say YouTube Music doesn't have it, but I'll
Yeah,
let you go.
yeah, but you can find it on YouTube. At least we found uh, 5 of the 7, right?
Five. I always showed 6 songs
Okay,
on the album. I may be wrong, but we've got
okay,
5 of the 6.
5 of the 6.
Troppo was the main song. Song number 1, To Henry, a Son.
Mm-hmm.
Lime Blossom. The song that I cannot find was Sons of Art. and then back to skip that one, fellow feeling, and then overtones of forgotten music. Those were the songs. So out of the six of them that I'm showing, Sons of Art, right there in the middle, that would probably be side B, song one. I could not find on YouTube. And Matt, I'll touch on that. I don't think we found all of those songs when we did this in April. I think there was a few of them that weren't even out there.
Let me talk a little bit about Michael Garrick, if you
Yeah,
don't
please
mind.
do.
All right. Michael was a piano player. He was an arranger and a composer. He was also an English lit major, an entirely self-taught musician, which I found just incredible. I mean, to teach yourself how to play the piano is not easy. You remember the lessons with Ms. Gershmel, learning scales, learning chords, learning how to put things together. Can you imagine trying to learn the piano by yourself?
Left hand, right hand,
Oh
thinking
my
differently.
goodness, thinking differently. So I just found that so interesting with Michael that he was an entirely self-taught musician. He also later in his career was very, very heavily involved in jazz education, which, as well as I do, is an important part of anything is the education part, teaching the young ones, the younglings, about jazz and what jazz is.
Mm-hmm.
The genre that Troppo is listed is just jazz. Now, on the next slide, you'll see I got this timeline that I pulled up. um, but in the magazine, I think it was either in the magazine or on the wiki page. The genre is the poetry and the jazz together. And if when you get a chance to listen to the album, you kind of really start getting the poetry part of it. At least for me, coming back this week and listening to it again this week, knowing that he was an English lit major and poetry was a big part, you can really, really see kind of the poetry coming through. It's just so beautiful, just so beautiful. Unfortunately he doesn't have his own website. He passed away in 2011, just as the internet was becoming what it is today. But again, unfortunately, you search Michael Garrick, you can find Discogs and wikis and all kinds of other stuff online. So, the album 1973 was produced at Argo Studios. Now, I did not list every artist that was on the album. I'm sorry. Norma Winstone, the vocalist. Again, we'll have this discussion
Well, we
again.
do it over. We do it over and over again,
We
week
do.
after week.
I kind of debating on our liking vocal jazz, and I know where we've rated other vocalists in vocal jazz, but Norma's got this incredible tone that that just I, I don't want to say haunting. I need to think of a different word than haunting. It's you got one?
No, because I wrote that down.
Did you?
I did haunting,
Yeah.
haunting and vibrant. So
Yes.
I paused because I was like, I wonder what he's going to say. What's another word? It's not haunting. It really isn't. It's in one of the other songs I wrote down, Odyssey,
Oh yeah.
kind of another worldly. But haunting's got more of a negative connotation to it. So
Yeah.
yeah, what would it be?
Yeah, for sure.
And
Well, I
that's a
tell you
good.
what, let's let the listeners,
I was
the
just going to say.
subscribers,
So y'all
yeah,
tell us what it would be.
what you think of the vocalist. When you hear her, how about recognizable?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I think recognizable
yeah.
would be a good term to describe her. Henry Lother on the trumpet. Me being from a trumpet background, I always kind of tune into the trumpet player and what they're doing. He stood out to me quite a bit. Good trumpet player.
Well, to Henry, a son, second song on that album, I wrote down trumpet, less is more kind of feel.
Hmm.
That's where I really notated the Space Odyssey kind of sound into it.
Yeah.
That song, I started to put like 1 star or two next to the song so I could figure out which ones I love the best. That one really hit me. The electric piano, I've written it down several times. Lime Blossom. the third album on that, or third song on that album. Those two I bounced back and forth, and then this morning again listening to it before we had gotten this going, Fellow Feeling. So those three, I don't know,
Yeah. No,
rich texture, dark tones, haunting vocals, less is more trumpet. I mean, it kind of summed it up for me.
yeah. Yeah, yes, for sure. I agree 100%. I agree 100%. It was recorded over 2 days, October 13th and 26th, back in 1973. Let me switch to the next slide. We'll talk a little bit about the
Mm.
70s. This comes from a PDF that I found online. I did not create this. I did add it to the unconnoisseur.com website. If you'd like to see more of this, the kind of the jazz timeline, and we'll talk a little bit more about timeline as we go on
Oh,
in our
yes, we
journey.
will.
Yeah, and we'll get to some stuff that you may like, you may not.
Matt, I hadn't even considered this, but that PDF, I'm going to talk about that here in a little bit, the jazz history of it and learning to listen. I love this slide.
Yeah,
Just point blank. I'm so glad you brought that slide to the table because this is part of our journey as we grow, as we
right.
learn. And this slide is kind of timely for where we were at, what we were doing. So,
Well, and it helps you realize what else was going on in jazz. The important
yeah.
musicians part at the bottom. Miles Davis was huge in the 70s.
Man, I didn't
We'll
even
talk.
think about Weather Report in the 70s or Mavinishu.
Mahavishnu, yeah,
Yeah, Chick
Mahavishnu
Corea.
Orchestra.
I mean, come
Yeah,
on, Weather Report. And
uh-huh.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
we'll talk about that in weeks to come too.
So it just gives you a general idea of kind of maybe what you're listening to. On the next slide, there's a quote that we'll get to here in just a second. But the 70s, the characteristics of some of the jazz in the 70s were the use of the electronic instruments, which I found in Troppo. I just loved. I absolutely loved it.
Lime Blossom, the
Yes,
electronic piano and the vocals.
yes,
Yep.
yes. Focus on attention of the rhythm section, which I mean, we'll talk about Herbie Hancock later on our journey. And again, the less is more kind of thing. But holy cow, you know Garrick's rhythm section is on point.
Oh yeah.
Um, so saxophones used more often than brass instruments, and I think maybe that was the thing with Henry. Henry, the trumpet player in this on this album, being the less is more. They wanted to use saxes a little more, maybe. I just absolutely, I fell in love with this album again. Listening to it again this week. Um, this last slide in my slideshow, the quote from Jazzwise magazine. It's right, and again, we talked about it
Mm.
being our jazz Bible, and so when I refer to the Bible, I'm not being
Nope.
um, yeah. What's the word I'm looking for? I'm not being sacrilege, right?
Nope.
Okay. So when I was reading my jazz Bible this morning, I this quote just stuck out to me for Michael Garrick. There was nothing in British or American jazz remotely stood out to me, remotely like it. And so spend whatever 42 minutes listening to the 5 out of the 6 songs that you can this week on Troppo, and please do not hesitate to make comments on the video and let us know what you thought of the album.
There was nothing in British or American jazz remotely like it. And I think that really hits on some things. We covered a couple other British albums so far and what was going on 70s time wise. I think it's interesting that they put that quote down there like that. They
Mhm.
really do. But the last sentence in the magazine, Troppo stands comparison to very best contemporary jazz of the period on either side of the Atlantic. And I find that interesting because they're already dropping uh, contemporary jazz, or what we would call, what I would have later said, the
Yeah,
modern jazz movement. So
yeah,
that's they're really swinging for the fences there
yeah, for
when
sure.
they use terminology like that. But um, pardon me. Uh, one of the things that I had written down, pioneer in mixing jazz with poetry. And I think that later we'll hear a lot more of that coming up. I think the terminology we end up with is tone poem. That happens a little bit later in our journey as well. And so something to keep in mind of is what that album really is bringing to the table. Um, so without further ado, what'd you think?
Well, let me
Was it
bring up one
rocking?
more. Yeah, they're rocking for sure. Let me bring up one other point, if you don't mind. Troppo did not make either of the other lists, 1999 or
Oh
2006
snap!
top 100 albums that shook the world. So I wonder what was going on
You know,
in
I'm going to say this. You and I are going to get online with John one day. I think once we've made it through the whole magazine, when we have, even if we haven't done the recordings yet, when we make it through it, I'm gonna have to call him up and say,
yeah,
John, well, I mean,
we need.
I want all your team on my screen. I want each and every one of you to justify why you did wrong or why you did right. But it begs the question:
Yeah,
how did how did they miss it, or what changed in their minds that
right.
they would drop it this time? And in '95, I might have pushed it a little further towards
Uh-huh.
number towards it would have been in probably '80s, '70s,
Okay.
but why did it not make it on '99 or 2006, and why now?
Yeah, right.
John, that'll be a good question for you. Drop a comment below. Uh,
Well,
John, I'll give you my cell phone number. Now it's over the pond, but hook a brother up. Let me know.
we can make time for him, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I got
And here's the thing. Without giving too much away, you and I did a challenge over the Christmas break,
yep.
and how hard was it to rate just 5 albums?
Oh, and that.
Imagine
Come
thinking of
on now.
pressure of every single jazz album that's ever created, trying to choose the top 100. So let me just say this: rating it at number 95. I'm glad, first of all, that it even got a rating. I'm glad that it was this close to our journey starting. Okay, that means that I get to listen to it again and again and again and come back to it when I need something familiar, when I need something recognizable. I, I'm I'm not mad at John for putting it at 95. I'm kind of happy that he did because um, we don't know what we don't know, right?
Yep.
Which is big for you and I, being the unconnoisseurs, the non-professionals. We're going to leave it to the professionals to rate them and put them in order. So I think that's an important thing in my mind, the recognizability of it. I'll
Yeah.
just tell you. Yeah, go ahead, go.
I was going to say, I make fun of that as we go because we are at 50. But even in that top 100, you've hit the nail on the head, something that I've been thinking about. I've got no place to rate these, even after I've listened to the top 100. I have no business saying it should have been 90 or 80 or 70. I probably won't after the next 20 years. And what kind of business of it is to challenge what they did? But it's been fun. And
Right.
I think that reminds me every time I go back to the beginning of our jazz Bible here. They wanted to put a list together of not just the biggest sellers.
Mhm.
They didn't want to focus on the most collectible. They wanted the albums that changed jazz and changed lives and brought the jazz music forward. And
Yeah.
so yeah, what a perfect timing at 96, 95 to
Right.
drop this on us.
Right. Well,
Because now I get to listen to his other works.
correct. That's the other thing that I was going to mention is that, you know, we start off just listening to the album in the magazine, but then you and I branch out together, listening to either more works by that same artist or works by someone who played with him. So I think for me this week, I'm going to focus on probably Henry Lother, the trumpet player, to see what else he was into. If there was another group that he was
Right.
in, more stuff that I can listen to by Henry. And believe it or not, I'm probably going to look up Norma too, Norma Winston, the vocalist, to see what else or who else
Yep.
she played with. Now, of course, us being on this side of the pond, the British jazz stuff for us is going to be different. It's going to be not. I don't want to say it's not interesting. It's just maybe harder to research for us on this side of the
Yes.
pond.
Yep.
So that's going to be my takeaway from this week.
So here would be my takeaway for this. Safraz, Nazarene, while you're out there in London shopping around at all these record shops looking for nickel and dime records, would you
Yes.
find me Michael Garrick's Troppo? We've
Uh-huh.
got the album cover in the middle of this. You can see what it looks like. I'm thinking 10 pounds. That's what about it? 10. It's about $15. That's all I got, baby. $15. I've got Michael Westbrook's coming in the mail sometime this week. But then there might be a couple more albums I'll hint at here in a little bit. But we had trouble finding about 4 albums throughout the process. For those of you, Safraz, Nazreen, I'm going to tell you that I've talked about you. Hook a
Oh,
brother up, find the albums at the nickel dime store, and let me know. I know you guys like shopping for cheap records too. We talked about it in Denver.
Franz, I got to tell you, I've never met you, but I think I know who you are because Drew talks about you enough. So I can't wait to finally meet you in person. Hopefully, we get a chance to do that.
Oh yes.
Yeah,
Oh yes.
yeah,
I
yep.
didn't mean to hijack that, but
No,
it is interesting trying to find these albums, especially because they had been on the other side of the pond there. But some of the music coming out of that time, I mentioned this during the brief conversation a couple of weeks ago about Shabaka and some of the other things. That was Sons of Kemet. We were talking about number, was that 99?
that
That
was
was our
99. Yeah,
99 Sons of Kemet.
yeah.
And kind of the jazz sounds coming from the UK during these earlier years. It went overseas, it grew, and it's developed since then. And so a lot of these sounds got blended, even in the 80s, 90s, and current, with their current world. They didn't come from the history of music that the U.S. did. Now, we would call it Native American music.
Mhm.
It started here. This blues music came from a history. This jazz music got blended in. Looking back on the history of it, all of it spread. So the UK has some very unique sounds, and it is tough to find sometimes the stuff here in America.
Yeah,
Looking
America.
for the history of it. I'm going to
Mhm.
use that as a segue
Okay.
because I think that I need to as we wrap this up. One of the things that we started doing early on, we ended up looking at, I think you might be able to see it. Oh, keep it in focus here. How to Listen to Jazz by Jerry Coker. Man, this album. Oop, wrong side. There we go. Uh, I won't say album. I was getting ready to say album. This book, as we were looking at, I'll hold it up now on full screen here. We started. I don't even know how we came across this book. What was it? You Googled it. I Googled how to listen to jazz music. Ended up finding this book.
Yeah. And
And
believe it or not, you can find it on Amazon for relatively cheap.
they're
I mean, I
probably
think
like
I
a
paid,
dollar a pop. I
yeah,
mean, and
I think I
probably a
paid a
little
dollar
more than that,
99.
but
Yeah,
$9.95 is James
MSR.
Abersol Jazz out of Albany, Indiana, but $9.95 is the cover price on it in the states. Anyways, we started to look at some of this information as far as what are we doing, how to listen to jazz. It was weird because it started out with that journey right there, and I don't recall exactly the date that we ordered these books, but we started by curiosity's sake now. We're listening to these albums. That's cool. Who was this Michael Garrick? Who was this Mike Westbrook? Who was? And that's cool. But now what are we doing? We're listening
Right.
to jazz. So we got this book and started to read into it. And I think that what hit me the most was the last, really the last chapter of the book, and that was the jazz greats. You listen to formal structures in jazz and the rhythm section of jazz and how to listen to jazz. But when you got to the back, he ended at chapter 5 with the Improvisers Hall of Fame. So who's who? What were they doing? And then, of course, the uh, chron, yeah,
Yeah. Chronological.
chronological listings of the jazz greats.
Hmm.
And when that you start looking at that, you brought that slide up, the jazz greats at that time, what's happening in the history, and then the jazz history at the back.
Yeah.
And that really started to make me think, wow, we really are digging into the history. Now again, 1970, for you young whippersnappers listen to this, yeah, that was
No, that
ancient
is ancient.
history. For me, that was just a few years ago. But you think about pre-jazz with Jelly Roll Morton, Joe Oliver, King Oliver, or Ma
Yeah.
Rainey, James P. Johnson. This is I'm just reading the list. When you look at 1890, you're into Bessie Smith, Sidney Bechet, and then you start touching on to Duke Ellington and Louis
Yeah.
Armstrong. We're
Yeah.
talking about 100 years ago plus. And then that doesn't include the Buddy Bolden era, which was the
Right.
original OG
Yeah, the
trumpet
OG.
player.
Yeah.
But then that music came from somewhere. That stride piano and almost gave a whole bunch of other names away here. We'll get to those names later. But
Yeah.
the stride piano came from the ragtime, and it came from so much of that other jazz history. So when you really start to piece this together, listening to it, it's historic. There's
Yeah.
something more to it than just the album, and I think that that's what kind of reminds me to go back to the magazine. These were albums that shook the world. They weren't the best sellers or the biggest hits. They weren't, but they did something. And when you take this back to 1970 and you start thinking about the history of jazz music, you think about the greats that have long since gone. You think about Michael Garrick and what did he leave as an impact on his music? And
Right.
then all of a sudden, it's not just checking out an album for us. And that's kind of the transition that we started to go through, especially with the next album, number 94. And then when we moved down into 88, no, I'm sorry, it wasn't even 88. It was even lower than that, wasn't it?
Yeah.
83.
Yeah.
83 ruined my life. Don't turn the page.
No, do
Don't
not
move
turn
into
the
that in
page,
advance.
please.
But 83 ruined my life because that's when all of these other dominoes started to fall into place. And
Yeah.
Joe Coker's book really helped that. It is a little more sophisticated than the unconnoisseur Drew was prepared for, but
Well,
I
and
will
that's
go
okay
back and
because
reread.
let me touch on just the chapter or just a few things out of the chapter that really kind of solidified this journey for us. And we started using this quite a few weeks into our journey. You know, the first couple of weeks on our journey, I'm not even sure we rated him a score. We just say, did you like it or did you not?
Yeah.
So coming back and doing this channel has really, been a good experience just to rate those that we didn't actually rate. But it also gives us a chance to start from this criteria that we're on now. Um, um, where was I at? Sorry. The When I listen to a jazz album now, part of my criteria for listening, obviously the first time through is just for fun, just to listen to it. I don't criticize or anything else. I just listen to it for fun. But the second time I listen to it, it's the craftsmanship. Number one, how is it crafted together? How are the musicians playing together? How is the actual sound? The recording studio. How does it sound recording wise? Awareness. I won't go too much into awareness, but that's one of our criteria that we learned from the Coker book, kind of how to listen to jazz. Number three is the creativity. How creative is the composer? How creative is the trio, the quartet, the quintet that you're listening to? How creative are they? The spirit is number four. That kind of criteria that we started using. Um, what's the spirit of the music? How does it move you? How do you feel about the music when you listen to it? Well, and that would touch on number five as well. I think we added number five on our own.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't part of the book. Was the emotion, and that's kind of how we look at
Oh
our
yeah.
week in music and how we kind of rate the albums that we listen to. And again, we're only rating the one album that we're talking about. This doesn't even play
Well,
into the fact that you listen to so much music by that artist through the week, and the artist may jazz you up all week long, and so your rating comes in super duper high, when in fact the album itself might not have been rated that
yeah.
quite that high if you're just doing the album. So I give props again to to Jazzwise
Yeah.
for even putting this list together.
Oh,
So
absolutely. Just a couple of touch points on that. You had mentioned creativity, and I think that in the book they talk about the improv. When I began to listen to jazz back in the day, I didn't really understand how much really is improv. You've got a 12 bars blue or 16 bar jazz head. And now, again, Matt, I'm learning the trumpet. So for everybody listening, understand that this isn't just about listening, but I'm learning to play an instrument, and I'm learning to play it because of my daughter's jazz time. When I talk about 12 bar blues, 16 bar jazz heads, the solos are built based on a melody or some kind of a rhythm that allows you to move from there. A lot of these artists may have one, two, or 20 takes on a song in the recording studio. Every one of those takes might be different because they're creating something on the spot. They heard a different note, they play it. And so improv becomes that creativity
yeah,
killer to me. The emotion, and you touched on it. We may have albums by other albums by the same artist that really get us stoked and fired. We go back and have to be casual about our rating on it. But part of the reason why we dig in and record what we do for me is my emotions for the week also impact my rating. If I'm in a need for heavy energy and Sons of Kemet is it, if I need something really cool, next week's album is just something chill. If I, you have albums for those moods, for those emotions. Things are going bad in this week, or they seem to be tough, and your dad has to call you out for lunch, and you wonder why. He knows what's going on because he's listening. And I think that's the crucial part of it is that when we really start to listen both to ourselves and to jazz, it's no longer about the music. It's about what's happening to each of the artists that are doing their thing on that album.
yeah,
It's about what's going on in our world. Keaton moving out, man.
yeah,
I can't imagine that day when it comes. I'm gonna lean
yeah,
in. My
yeah.
wife's gonna be horrified when Lily moves
Right,
out,
right.
and I don't. I joke. I probably won't take it hard. I'll be bawling for a week. I think about what it was like for you to move out. I
Well,
I was
it's
there to watch
funny.
that.
It's funny because we talked about it, with the kids even. Oh, we can't wait to be empty nesters, this, that, and the other. Well, and then the closer that it gets, the harder that it gets. And then on the day that, yeah, it's not easy to let them go.
Yeah.
But like the mother eagle pushes that baby bird out of the nest, saying it's time for you to go. Um, the big thing for us, the big thing for me, and this is coming from my own personal experience too. I never want my kids to feel like I'm kicking them out of the house.
No.
We're getting off track again.
Yeah,
But
I know, but I will touch on this. How many times did you give them to move back in if they needed to?
one, one time, you get one time to move back in. That's it. That's what our dad gave us, and I haven't used mine yet. So,
Uh, well, I think I used one of yours, and then Phil used enough
two,
for everybody.
yeah, yeah, for sure. When I
I
left
love you,
home,
Phil.
I love you, Dad. When I left home, it wasn't because I had a bad childhood or a bad home life. We had
No,
we
man.
had a great home life, and
Yeah,
I
oh
wanted
yeah.
my kids to experience that same thing, a good home life, and not feeling like mom and dad kicked me out of the house, and now I'm all on my own, and I got to figure all this stuff out by myself. That was huge for me. Yes, I want them out of the nest. I want them on their own, but man, I do not want them to feel like I am kicking them out one bit.
No.
So, Jazz helped me this week. There was a couple of albums that I think I touched on this before we started
Yeah.
recording that I had to go back to this week. Some of my all time favorite. Um, I needed some of that Saturday morning. You were dead asleep with the Rona, but I needed some music in my ear Saturday morning, and so uh, yeah. Uh-huh. Anyways, all right, let's get back to Michael
Yeah.
Garrick.
So,
You ready? Are
uh,
you ready
yeah,
to?
yeah, boy.
You are.
I
Okay.
have it written down in my notebook.
Yep, I have it written in my notes what I rated
Uh,
him. The one thing that stood out to my mind this week was standards, and I keep meaning to
mm,
bring this up on the channel. Um, you're not going to hear a jazz standard from Michael Garrick. I mean, it's the style of jazz that he does isn't the kind of to play a standard, at least on Troppo. Let's
Yep.
put it that way. Now, you and I have, we'll get into a little more about Michael Garrick and listening to him. Um, this week, I'm going to make it a
Yep.
point to get back into Michael Garrick and see what else we can hear.
I've dug that. Yeah.
Yeah,
I will. This will be a go back to album for a long time.
this
Him,
will be
this
for
one
sure.
and many others.
Yeah.
So okay,
All right.
shake my world, baby. What'd you rate it
Okay.
as?
All right.
Do you have the spreadsheet open? Because I saw that this morning. I do have mine in there.
Yeah, I don't think I put
I'm
mine in the spreadsheet just yet, but I did keep a note of it that week. So I started keeping digital notes
okay.
this week when we started our journey. I
And
started keeping
I'm a
digital
goober.
notes.
I'm old school. I still keep
Yeah,
paper
that's all
notes.
right. That's all right. So
So
here we go. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead. I'll put it on the spreadsheet. And by the way, for those of you who are listening, I did update the website this week, so it's got our new spreadsheet on it. So it's got the top 100 as far as where we're at right now in he and I's journey. You're going to see some numbers, some names. Again, if you want to look ahead, that's fine. We are choosing not
yeah.
to look ahead.
So come on now, you're killing me, dog.
Okay, all
Come
right,
on,
all
you're
right.
killing me.
I gave Michael Garrick a 7 out of 10 the week that we listened
Okay.
to him back in April. I think I'm going to change my rating. I'm going to go. I'm going to
Whoa,
go.
whoa, whoa, whoa! Time out! Time out! Time
All
out!
right, all
Time
right,
out!
all right,
Can we
all right.
change them?
No, no, no. Go ahead.
If you
All right,
would, if you,
go on.
I'm just asking because when we
Okay.
get to him, we're gonna have to wrestle with that. I'm telling you right now, when we record number 84, the jazz gods are gonna strike us dead, baby. If we can change them, I'm gonna go back and change it. I
Okay,
might
all right,
boost it
all
up a
right. I'm
I
not going
just
to
need to
change it.
verify that. I
I'm
just
not
need to
going to change
verify
it.
that because I'm going higher on 84. I'm gonna
Okay.
do it
No,
just so that
no, we're not.
I can
No, we're
please
not.
my
We're
inner
sticking.
self
We're
here.
we're sticking with what we got.
Seven
And
five or 7?
7 for me. Yeah.
Okay, I had it as an 8.5.
All right.
And I don't know when that came about. I think when I put that spreadsheet together, I went to an 8.5. I don't
Okay.
have in. I had it written down in my book as 8,
Okay.
and so I saw the spreadsheet this morning. I looked at that. It was a 8.5.
Nice.
I don't know which one to stick with, 8 or 8.5. I'd probably have to say that my paperwork here was my original info,
All
so I'm
right.
at 8. What
Well,
would you?
let me ask you this. Okay. What would I'd say start at 8, and then what would make you kick it up to an 8.5 if in the future you listen to it again with fresh ears, maybe?
Oh, like I
And
did this morning.
like you did this morning, yes. And that's why I said when I rated it, here's the thing: we don't know what we don't
We
know,
don't know
and
what we don't.
we're farther on in our
And
journey.
trust me, I'm at 50, 55 on the albums. I still don't know nothing.
Correct.
Would I go to 85, 8.5? Would I go
8.5.
to a little bit higher on it? I would. And what really stuck out to me this morning, listening to it again, and again, I've listened to it a couple of times this week just because it's
Mhm.
awesome. The electric keyboards in there.
Yeah.
I
Okay.
think that in that time period of that rock and roll, Miles Davis and Bitches Brew, he was starting to play a lot less notes and relying on everybody else behind him. That Wayne Shorter style feel.
Yeah.
Let the rhythm section do the work. They do the heavy carrying, and the instruments up front, the horns, the sax, just fill in almost.
Yeah.
And I think I heard a lot of that. The other part was listening now to the vocal part of it. I think
Yes.
that hit me different than it did back then. I
I
really do.
that's what I
I'll blame that
that's
on people like Cassandra and Betty
uh-huh.
Carter and
Yeah. Right.
other names coming ahead. But
So for me, again, on the journey when we started, we didn't know what we didn't know, and that's maybe why I wanted to kick my score up just a little bit. But again, I agree with you. We shouldn't. We should leave it where it's at. I'm
I want to
sticking.
ask, though, I need to
I'm.
ask, what would you
Nope.
put it at?
What would I would have given it a whole tick more. I'd have gone 8
Okay.
for me, just because coming back and listening to it again, it just kind of refreshed my memory on why we're doing it, and unfortunately, because it's not on iTunes, I can't listen to it, you know, anytime I want. I have to be sitting in front of the computer. Okay. And not that I don't listen to music in front of the computer, because I do. But if I'm, driving to my office, or if I'm, somewhere outside where I'm not sitting at the computer, I can't hear it. So this is one that I really had to sit down and focus on right in front of the computer. And so what we don't know, we don't know. And back then, I think a rating of 7, anything
Yep.
above 5 for us is really, really good. So
Yeah.
far on our journey, we have not rated anyone under a 5. And to be honest, we have no place rating it,
No, it's
because we're not pros.
I think
This
our
is
rating these weeks started to become just, would it be like a 3-star review? 1, 2, or 3. It could
correct.
have been just
One
that
to 10.
simple.
Yeah, 1 to
I
10.
think
How do you like it?
yeah, I threw that out originally because Lily and I talk about it on the way to school in the morning and then in the evening. I've been able to drop her off and pick her up, and so I said, "What's your day going to be like?" And we started with a 1 to 10. And she'd
Mhm.
be like, "Oh, it's gonna be a 7.5." And I'm like, "I'm tired of the halves. Let's just cut the crap and go to 1 to 5. What kind of day is it gonna be? And is it gonna be a 1? Is it gonna be a 5? Is it gonna be a crappy day? Is it gonna be a great day? And if it is a great day, it's 5." And then we eliminated all halves. And so it was kind of funny because it just whittled it down and tightened it up. But I think that was
Yeah.
part of why we did the 1 to 10, is just what was your complete and utter thought. And going back, yeah, we don't have any room to rate. The fact of the
Right.
matter is, it's our personal opinions
Personal
on
opinion.
these particular albums, and it's going to be influenced by our emotions of the week. And again, that's part of our conversations. I remember 2 hour long conversations on a Tuesday morning, and then when we go, "Oh shoot, did we talk about the album yet this morning?"
Right.
Um, that's the journey to me. This is
Yeah.
the conversation that happens, and it's still hysterical. I'm looking at OBS Studio at your face right now, and I'm like, I wouldn't have thought about this last year. I wasn't thinking about recording it.
Uh-uh.
I just wanted to conversate with my older brother,
Right.
and it's turned to be where we are today.
Yeah.
And so I hope that everybody listening begins to see that and feel that and appreciate the conversation. It is two brothers rambling on about life and music and life and music. If you're going to do it with music, right?
Well, and it's a good point to make. Find someone to do this journey with. Um, Talk to a coworker. Talk to your spouse. Talk to your
Yeah.
kids. I would have probably, I don't know if I'd have jumped for joy if Dad would have said, "Hey, listen to this Miles Davis album." Back then. But if it's something that you can connect with your kids with, man,
Oh man.
do that and get them started in jazz early. Start them on this journey. Just even if you can only do a couple of songs a day with them, say, "Hey, we're going to listen to one song off this album. Tell me what you think about it." And just start some dialogue with your
Yeah.
kids or with a coworker, or dialogue with us. Leave us notes on the channel and tell us
Yeah.
what you think. If you want more dialogue, man, I'm happy to talk to you throughout the week. And I know that Drew, he could talk to you throughout the week. You might not get many words in, but he could talk to you through the week.
Well, I was
So
joking with Dad the other day. I said, Matt said to me the other day that he'd had a long conversation, or you had a long conversation with me. And he said, "So wait till you get to 2 hours. Then you'll realize you're having a long conversation with Drew." So I
that's
love you
right.
guys.
So all right. So I gave him a 7. You
Yep.
you rated this
I'm
album an 8.
8. Yep.
8.
Yep.
All right.
All right. So that wraps up last week's conversation. Now, what are we in for? What are we? Sorry. I'm going to try to contain myself. What are we
Uh,
in for this week, and what should everybody be listening to prepare themselves for next week's
Next week's
conversations?
conversation, number 94. You guys, this journey, if it's taught me one thing, it is do not judge a book by its cover. And, you know, if you've heard the name Gregory Porter before, you know kind of what you're in for the week. Now, Drew and I, on our journey, had no clue who Gregory Porter was when we started this. And I, I'm just so thankful. And you're going to hear us in later weeks tell you that we don't like vocal jazz, and we're lying to your face, because number 94, Gregory Porter. I think we used the term butter. We texted each
Mm,
other butter more times that
yep.
week than I probably care to choose. And if I had to eat as much butter as we
Oh
texted
man.
butter that week, I'd probably have a heart attack. But number 94, Gregory Porter, the album is Water. And Don't judge the book by the cover, even though the artwork is amazing, right?
Nice silhouette, baby.
Yeah, it's a nice silhouette backlit picture, and it's just, oh wow. You're in for a treat if you've never heard Gregory Porter. Check out the album. What year is it? 2009. And luckily,
2009.
luckily for us, this album is on iTunes Music and Google
Yeah, YouTube Music.
YouTube Music. Thank you.
Yep.
Um, and we won't preface. I won't say anything about the album. I'll just say it is worth the hour that you're going to spend listening to Gregory Porter's album this week. So please check it out. Join our conversation next week with us when we talk about the album, talk about Gregory Porter. Um, you know, the fun part of this journey is reminding yourself that it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. We don't have to listen to everything right now. But man, spend an hour this coming week listening to Gregory Porter. And I promise you, if you're in a bad mood, you will be in a better mood, right?
No, you just can't help it.
You
You
cannot
can't.
help it.
I've been seeing these little TikTok thing about a little bird looking at an angry bird, saying you just need a hug. Gregory
Yes.
Porter's album is a great big hug. So
Oh,
if you're feeling in a bad way, let him hug you. If you're feeling in a great way, you need a big hug anyways. So
uh-huh.
that's a Gregory Porter. The album is Water, 2009. Moname, Motame, Motame is the
Yep. Yep.
record label on that.
It's a
So
label. Yep.
that's what we're going to be talking about next week. Dig in, get it. If you haven't already, go ahead and get your Jazzwise special publication, the top 100 albums that shook the world at jazzwisemagazine.com. You can
Yep.
get that, I think Barnes & Noble probably still has them. Get them from jazzwise.com. We're a good
So
deal.
check us out on the unconnoisseur.com. I have updated the site. There's a lot of good information on there. It's like the jazz history timeline. Our ratings list is on there. Our bios are on there. So check us out at the unconnoisseur.com. It's a hard word to spell. We'll put the links in the videos for the Unconnoisseur website. If you have questions or concerns, or you just want to talk about jazz with us, man, please leave us a comment. Like and subscribe to the channel. We are on a schedule now for a Wednesday drop, right?
Wednesday drops.
Okay, so we're on a schedule now. Like and subscribe to the channel. Let us know what you think of the channel, and thank you. Have a great week listening to Gregory Porter.
This this week on the Unconnoisseur, number 94, Gregory Porter, Water.
Water.
All right, I'll see you soon, Matt. Cheers.
All right, bye, brother.